Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into a special bonus edition of the Locked On Knicks podcast. Today, I'm joined by Knicks beat reporter Kris Pursiainen to talk about what the legacy will ultimately be of the OG Anunoby trade and answer one big question. Are the New York Knicks finally ready to go all in?
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. I want to thank you for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, because we're now available on all platforms. So if you want to become an everydayer and see our smiling face all 7 days of the week, if that doesn't drive you insane, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and hit that notifications bell so you never miss an episode. And then be sure to do the same on your audio podcast platform of choice. And then please head over to Apple and give us a 5-star rating and review on the podcast size. But who's shilling for subs and reviews? I'm Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. Today, I'm joined by Knicks reporter Kris Pursiainen, where we talk about the legacy. I know it's a little bit early, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. The legacy of the OG Anunoby, Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett trade, and then we get into just how aggressive the New York Knicks are going to be going forward in terms of pursuing upgrades. An important caveat on this podcast, we did record it on Thursday, so it was in the midst of the Knicks 5-game winning streak and that euphoria before the loss to the Dallas Mavericks and before that anything happens in tonight's game as I record this on Saturday. Just wanted to get that note in, but for now, let's get into things with Kris. All right, guys, as promised, we are lucky enough to be joined by Kris Pursiainen, who covers the Knicks as a credentialed reporter for WFUV Sports. Kris, we were talking pre-show, long time in the making, first time meeting each other, first time on camera, super, super cool. Welcome to the show, and I'll give an abbreviated version of it. Congratulations on all your success. I'm excited to talk about it with you. There's a lot of cool things happening for you, and a lot of cool coverage of the Knicks from you because of it.
Thank you so much, man. Gavin, it's a pleasure to be on the show. It's a pleasure to meet you screen to screen. We've interacted plenty of times. Ever since COVID, this counts as meeting someone, I think. But we've interacted over the years, and I love your guys' show. And I talked to Alex about it, like what you guys do, and you guys just always have your finger on the pulse, and you're really good. So I'm really glad to be here on the show, and I'm honored to be on.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I want to talk to you about something you wrote. It was a guest piece for Knicks Film School. It was called Post. I'm sorry. That was the headline of the entire thing. Your article was called Bending and Breaking, and it was a perspective I really appreciated on the OG Anunoby trade because it was focused on Immanuel Quickley and the Knicks handling, and at times you could argue mishandling of him. And to me, it always sort of reads as kind of a Greek tragedy. I don't know. I might be mixing my literary stuff, but it's some kind of tragedy for sure, in the sense that I think Immanuel Quickley is a great player. I think he's going to end up being a multi-time All-Star, or at least a single-time All-Star with multi-time All-Star attributes before his career is said and done. A net rating god, and I think that will continue throughout his career. And yet the fit on the Knicks was questionable, and he had a coach who I don't even think it was that big of a question for ever. It was more of an inevitability that he just didn't really fit next to Jalen Brunson, despite a whole bunch of numbers that screamed otherwise. Whether that's ultimately the right decision and whether that success would have translated to the playoffs could be debated forever. But even with all the success the Knicks have had, like, that's still sort of been on my mind. And I hadn't really seen the article that summed those feelings up. And this was it. So I guess we could start here. Like, what was your impetus behind writing it and wanting to take that approach on tackling the trade?
I went up to Syracuse to see my girlfriend because I'm in college and it's winter break. She lives up in Syracuse. And when I got there, she had gotten me a book called The Only One Left by Riley Sager. And it's very much a 20-year-old girl in college book that's like a murder mystery type of book. But the writing was fantastically awful. Like, it was not, I didn't think it was a well-written book, but I was so in the plot. And so I was like, what if I kind of took this murder mystery style of writing and applied it to what's going on with the Knicks right now? And I kind of used that away. It's no longer a scoop because Quickley confirmed it in his Players Tribune article, but the fact that he was never really supposed to play in his rookie season, despite being a first round pick, he was just not meant to be in the rotation. Austin Rivers was never an extra guard. He was the backup too. Quickley took that role from him, and that's why Rivers was unceremoniously dumped just, weeks later. But I was like, what if I I had known that for about a year, and it's like, what if I made that like the murder mystery? What if that was the big reveal? And I kind of built up this piece where I definitely didn't want it to come off as anti-Thibodeau. And so I made lots of allusions and references to his like vast and storied success. But everything good comes at a cost. And I just wanted to write about that cost. Write about the fact that Immanuel Quickley is going to be really, really great. And the New York Knicks are going to be really, really great. But they're going to have to do it separately, and fans of both are going to have to deal with that. And so shout out to my girlfriend for that murder mystery book, because it really inspired me. I was driving back from Syracuse with her, and I wrote that whole article on the notes app in my phone. And then I sent it to my friend Conrad, who edited it. And that's how it got to where it was in Knicks Film School. It was something I was really proud of, because I thought it was not an opinion piece. Like, I thought it was just journalistic, and that was a muscle I had never really exercised before. So I, forget flex. Like that's like SpongeBob doing like the little tiny curl, like, like it's just like I got like this big of a muscle, and I was just trying to grow it a little bit. I had writing beat out of me to a pulp when I wrote over 105 articles in less than 7 months when I was with Sports Illustrated. And so since then, I only really write when something speaks to me. When the Knicks were eliminated by the Atlanta Hawks, and I was there in Madison Square Garden, and it was dead silent. I mean, I was there after game 2.
Yeah.
Parade in the streets for one playoff win. And after game 5, the halls of MSG were, I mean, you could hear a Daily Burger fry drop on the ground. And it was like, I got to write about this emotion. This building is containing so much hope and so much sadness at once. That got me to write. Immanuel Quickley's tenure with the Knicks, that got me to write. So every once in a while, I get pulled out of my ridiculous retirement at the age of 21.
I can deeply relate to this as someone who covered the Phoenix Suns in college and
they were really good then, I bet.
No, they were. It was not fun. My first year was the 48 win year where they missed the playoffs, and that was far and away the peak of it. But then
Tyler Ulis.
I did. I can send you a video of me interviewing him. It was great. But anyways, I say that to say, that's when I wrote a lot, and I also retired because you gotta be made of different stuff to be a writer. Shout out to the Jonathan Macri's and Fred Katz's of the world.
Yes.
But at the time, they traded Isaiah Thomas, who was clearly like a really, really good player who just did not fit on the team because they had 3-point guards, and Thomas was the guy they chose to give up on. And of course, Isaiah Thomas, like obviously now not necessarily working out for him, but at the time went on to be the best player on Eastern Conference Finals team, had a season where he averaged 27, 28 points per game. Ridiculous. And honestly, until you just started talking, I didn't even think of making that comparison, but it feels kind of similar in that a guy who could have been a fit under a really creative coach and a really creative front office. And if you didn't have that, it was just never going to work no matter what the numbers said. And he could go on to be awesome, and it could still work out better for the team. Now, given where the Suns are now, you could question that, but for a time being, it did ultimately work out because you built around the right pieces. And to me, Immanuel Quickley was this incredible puzzle piece that was just a part of a different puzzle. And that's how this story is going to go. But from your perspective, Kris, if we're looking 5 years or even longer down the line, what do you think the legacy of this trade ultimately is if Quickley does go on to have a great career? Not to mention RJ Barrett, who just had a 37-point night for the Toronto Raptors, but maybe things work out exceptionally well for the Knicks as well.
I think, well, first of all, I think RJ, a change of scenery was big for him. I think that's going to wake him up in a way that I don't think he's gotten that kick in the butt before. I think he came to New York knowing he was going to get kicked in the butt for everything he did. And it got to a point where it almost fell numb to him, those kind of criticisms. He didn't care what the media said, which is how to be. He didn't care what the fans said, which is how to be. But at a certain point, that way, the way in which he carried himself was perfect. But everything I heard behind the scenes about players reaching out to him to work out with him and not getting answers back and things like that, the money's got to be where the mouth is on the work ethic. And I think that at the risk of, like, I don't mean to put him down in any way. I just think there's nothing like national television waking you up and telling you, like, you need to go and put the work in and get to the grindstone. I always say, like, quarterbacks who had a terrible playoff game, like, bet their over touchdown passes next season. Like, if they got thrown out of the playoffs in an awful performance, they're going to go that summer and grind and wake up. And I think this for RJ Barrett, to him, was more than just like, oh, it's a business. Like, I think he's going to wake up in Toronto. I think Knicks fans will see it and be like, oh, we shouldn't have traded him. I don't know that he was ever going to be that version of himself in New York, based on the pecking order of things. And just, he did get usage, but it was always, he got good usage, but it was always as the third guy. It was always, he never, ever, even no matter how good of a game he was having, was going to be the first option in crunch time. And that's sometimes, like, you go to the doctor and you're trying to make yourself as tall as possible, and you're a little kid and you feel like they're pushing you down, and they're really not, but you feel like you could be taller if you didn't have something over your head, like the doctor's hand. And I think that was it for RJ. Like, I think he thinks he can be taller, and I know he can be taller. But I think he saw the Knicks and Thibodeau as someone trying to measure him. And I think that wasn't working.
All right, guys, we'll be back with Kris in just a sec to talk about why OG Anunoby is a corner piece in the Knicks' long-term puzzle and just how aggressive the New York Knicks could get in the coming weeks and months. But before we do that, I want to tell you about our good buddies over at LinkedIn. At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire on their own. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. And Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. And oh man, did I get to experience that for myself when I was incredibly lucky to see Jalen Brunson's 50-point game in person in Phoenix against the Suns. And that was all thanks to Gametime. I got to see my seats ahead of time. And they were seats that I said, for the price, you know what, I'm a little bit unsure of. And then once I saw the view, it was like, oh, wow, these are amazing. This is a steal. And I got those incredible seats. And what really locked me in was the Gametime guarantee, which means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So that means you literally can't go wrong with Gametime. There's no way you can go to Gametime and not end up paying the lowest possible price. And that's pretty incredible. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And you know, kind of the moment that made you think something's going to happen, something has to break here, is when RJ subbed in for Quickley in that game where Quickley was playing so well, and RJ comes in, and Thibodeau's explanation was,
game, right?
The Thunder game was, and Thibodeau's explanation was that, well, Barrett's length is what they needed in the game because defensively that's what they needed. You look at Quickley and his 6'9" wingspan, the numbers defensively, like nothing suggests Barrett's a better defender. So RJ did get chances that, you know, whether he should have gotten them or not, he got the opportunities. They just weren't the opportunities he needed. And so I think Knicks fans get caught in the storm of, oh, but we afforded him all these chances. But they, yes and no. You know, like it's
Yeah.
it's very mixed. As for the trade, I think RJ Barrett's going to go on to have a very successful career. And
I mean, can we, Chris, sorry to interrupt you, but could we just say real quick, like Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, like in terms of 2-star players, like maybe 2 of the worst guys in the league to put around RJ Barrett and vice versa. And like, that's where this maybe works out for everyone.
Randle and Barrett just wasn't yin and yang. It was north and north.
They do the same things to some
south
extent.
and south. You know, it was 2 different sizes of the same polarization magnet, and one of them pulled harder than the other and has more gravity on the court, and that's who the Knicks chose. Literally, he's physically larger. He's more skilled with the ball in his hands, maybe because he's 7 years older. But these are all things that the Knicks now are good enough to have to care about. And so that's champagne problems for the Knick faithful. As for the trade, to actually answer your question, Barrett diatribe aside, and he was such a pleasure to cover, by the way, RJ. Like, he's going to go on to have a great career. I don't want to, like, I'm not saying anything against him. But as for the trade, I think, like, in rush hour, when you're playing rush hour and you move a car that you think, like, you didn't really get, like, that didn't win the game for you, but oh my God, did that move just open up like 4 cars getting out? Like,
I forgot that game existed, and you had a real nostalgia blast.
Childhood blast.
Yeah.
That's what this trade is going to be for the New York Knicks, in my opinion. I came out pretty strongly, and I was like, I think they got worse today. I think they got 4 times better in the future. They're showing me with Thibodeau's newfound flexibility, all of a sudden Barrett and Quickley are off the roster, and he's staggering Randle and Brunson, making sure one is on the court at all times. They're not worse today. So I was wrong about that, because I didn't see that flexibility from Tom Thibodeau coming. I was wrong about that. What I will say I was right about was what this opens up for them in the future, which was Anunoby's a puzzle piece that you look at, and he's a corner in a puzzle. Like, you can start with him. You know, you set up your 4 corners: Randle, Brunson, Anunoby, Robinson, maybe Hartenstein. Maybe, you know, we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But Anunoby's a corner to a puzzle. Like, he's not the final piece. He's never going to be, you plug this guy in and everything is solved. But he is something that makes you think, oh, we've got something going here. Now we're ready to plug in that final puzzle piece. He's a corner in a puzzle. And those are valuable pieces. I think he's about as good today as Immanuel Quickley is. He's a little better because of his size. But how many guys are his size in the league that can do what he does? It's a very rare archetype, and it's a very highly coveted one. It's a credit to the Leon Rose front office that the former regime's number 3 overall pick, who was controversial, that they chose to extend, and their own 25th pick in the draft was enough a compensation for someone who teams were throwing like 3 first-round picks at. The Raptors really just wanted Quickley. The Raptors really just wanted Immanuel Quickley. That was it for them. And you see Masai Ujiri on the phone with him. He's telling him, like, you and Scotty, man, like, that's our future. That's how they see it. He didn't say RJ, because I think that RJ is more of a transitional guy for them, the way I saw Julius Randle when the Knicks first signed him. Hey, this guy's going to come in. Someone's got to take the shots, and he's going to help them get this thing off the ground. I hope RJ gets to be part of a contending team one day and isn't doomed to helping teams get things off the ground and then getting moved off of once it's time. But because I'd love to see him play, you know, on the biggest stage in the later playoff rounds. He's just got that game that's built for living through those moments and staying cool, you know. But I think the Raptors viewed Quickley as the centerpiece of the trade. I think they see it as the Immanuel Quickley trade. For the New York Knicks, the legacy of the OG Anunoby trade is going to be, this opened the floodgates. I've reported since 2020 with Sports Illustrated that the New York Knicks, when the time comes to be aggressive, are going to shock people with how aggressive they're going to get. Because this is a front office who knows once it's time to kick things into gear, you cannot waste time. And now RJ Barrett and Immanuel Quickley go out in the same deal after Knicks fans arguing forever which one's going to stay. Both gone. They are going to continue to surprise you with moves like that, because they don't care. They are ruthless. They just want to win. Jalen Brunson said it. I think he was being interviewed about the loss to Miami in the playoffs for like a this season hype video. And he was like, we're a very focused group. All we care about is winning. And I think they really see it that way. I mean, look at Quickley. He's writing in his Players Tribune article, you know, David Goggins, Chop Wood, Carry Water, all these the biblical references and the who's going to carry the boats and, things like that. Like, that's how this team is. They just want to get the hell to work. And I think this OG Anunoby trade is going to be what opened the floodgates for that aggressive version of the front office to start building this final stage of the Knicks. Not final like for the next 4 years, but final in terms of this team is supposed to make the Eastern Conference Finals. It would be sick if we got out of round 1 or maybe even round 2.
And OG gives them, and this is what you're getting at, but he gives them the room to do that in that you have the efficiency of Immanuel Quickley and the accessible size of someone like RJ Barrett, which means Tom Thibodeau is always willing to keep him on the court. And you can trade for any star, and there's not like a star in this league you say like, well, you can't really get him because he doesn't make sense next to OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby, the reason he's so valuable, and this is what you're getting at with the quarter piece analogy, is he can play with literally anyone in any situation. And the Knicks, defying my expectations, because I thought they were probably going to, I don't know if I thought they were going to take a small step back. I think I probably thought they were going to be about the same in a different way, just because I thought the lack of creation was going to be a death knell for this team. And the incredible thing is it sort of has, right? They've had two different, I think against the Sixers, it was 6-minute stretch without a field goal. And then the other night they have a 9-minute stretch without a field goal against the Portland Trailblazers of all teams. And that should kill you in an NBA where there's 6 teams set to break the all-time offensive net rating record. And yet it doesn't, because their defense is currently like 6.5 points better. And we're recording this on Thursday, so it's before Thursday night's game, but currently 6.5 points better than any team in the NBA's per 100 possessions, which is just a ridiculous margin since they've acquired OG Anunoby. They lead the entire NBA net rating since they've acquired OG. With him on the floor, they have a plus 42.4 net rating. Ridiculously, they are only 4 points better than their opponents offensively. Defensively, they are 38 points better per 100 possessions than they normally would be when he's on the court. That is absurd. And I don't think that is totally sustainable because it's just such a big, ridiculous number that it doesn't really make sense. And I guess, Kris, looking forward, that's like if I'm Leon Rose, I'm doing rigorous self-assessment right now. And I'm saying, all right, we know we're going to need one more piece. And like is making a smaller trade, let's just say, for someone like Malcolm Brogdon, who you've reported that the Knicks have made some calls on, maybe have had a meeting on, are certainly interested in. And how does that help this year's team? Does that meaningfully change the ceiling of this year's team? And how does that affect our ability to pursue the star going forward? But I guess let's start smaller. Like, where do you think, like when Leon Rose does that self-assessment, where does he come out on this year's team in an Eastern Conference with the team as dominant as the Boston Celtics? Does he think it's worth it to give up an asset that he might not get back down the road and he might not be able to use in that trade for a star player for someone of a Malcolm Brogdon tier? All right, guys, that's it for this edition of Locked On Knicks. But if you're hyped for part 2, don't despair. It's dropping in just a couple hours. Going to put that out around 2:30 Eastern time today. But until then, we'll talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks.